Okay, I want to talk about that grain deal in Ukraine. I have kind of been intending on talking about that, but I always get into something else and get carried away and forget about it. But now, this does not surprise me that the other countries don't want to take it. What surprises me is that the EU is actually trying to make them take it. Now, the EU, okay, all this grain coming out of Ukraine is all that genetically modified, and it's all a product of Monsanto and Cargill. And now, long ago, the EU refused to take that. That was their policy because it has too many pesticides and herbicides. It's just something that they refuse to do. Because when we started to get into all that genetically modified stuff here, we got really pissed off because they didn't want to take it in Europe anymore for good reason. It freaks me out every time I see that where they're spraying Roundup on wheat to kill it so that they can harvest it quicker. They do the same thing with beans. It's a horrible policy, and then they can't figure out why this stuff keeps turning up in the food supply. That's exactly why. So the EU did something right, and they wouldn't allow that. And the funny thing now, they say, yeah, it's what they allowed in was used. Well, some of it was actually just destroyed, just burned. Some of it was used for animal feed, and I don't know how smart that is even. But according to them, oh, it's great for the Africans. Yeah, normal human beings aren't supposed to eat this stuff, but oh, Africans, that's all right. Though the good thing is, very little of it ended up in Africa. But I actually heard we had a shipload or two that came all the way to the United States of that garbage. We got plenty of that garbage here. We don't need more from over there. But that's what it's about. It isn't that it's destroying the European markets. It's technically not supposed to be allowed in to the EU. But Cargill and Monsanto and all these chemical companies are really invested heavily in Ukraine. It's one of the big reasons that we're in Ukraine is because they got a lot of clout here. And they want it. That's what they want, the modern farming methods. So it really doesn't matter if you kill off a whole bunch of Ukrainians. This is all big farm. That's what they want. All corporate owned. And they'll pound out that genetically modified crap to no end. But, Ukraine is trying to get rid of that. And I'm sure they're getting a lot of pressure from their overlords, these big ag conglomerates, to move that stuff. And they can't do it. I hope they will get more of that over here again. It's funny. People can't figure, oh, how come all these kids have asthma and all these odd diseases? And same thing, like some of this garbage ends up in dog food, and then they can't figure out why are dogs who never used to get all these weird diseases, now they're getting leukemia and cancer, but that stuff, if they can't use it for human consumption, they throw it into pet food. One of their theories on like feeding this genetically modified corn with all this chemical stuff on it to livestock. Well, how long is livestock going to be alive? You're going to be butchering them in 2-3 years. No problem. Well, yeah, there's a problem. It transfers through the meat. That stuff doesn't go away. But those companies have a hell of a lot of pull. And it's like the oil companies. We're willing to start wars and fight wars for their sake. And we'll do it for the ag companies too. But I did hear, I think it was somebody out of Poland, they're getting really pissy about this, trying to be forced to take this, grain that is not fit for human consumption. And they finally came out and said, they don't want it because of that. They claim it's to protect their farmers, but really it's just a horrible thing that you can't deal with, and really legally they shouldn't even be allowed to ship it in there. They want to be able to ship it through there, through Europe, but that isn't going to work. They're going to be siphoning that stuff off. It's going to end up in the food chain. But that is the basic problem with Ukrainian grain. People always seem to think that wheat from one place is the same as wheat from another. It isn't. That isn't how it works. Not nowadays. Huh. But the EU put a clamp down on that a long time ago, because I remember those ag companies were squawking to holy hell because they were losing that market, because those people over there didn't want to buy from us anymore. And we used to supply wheat to the whole world. Now everybody is doing nothing but corn. No other countries really want that either. A lot of it gets turned into ethanol. Just bad policy all around. But those chemical companies have huge lobbies, and they throw a lot of money into people's campaigns. So they get what they want. And from their business point of view, they want Ukraine. They don't need Ukrainians. They just need that big hunk of ground. But even with their biolabs, I mean, they got in on that because there's nobody really watching that sort of thing in Ukraine, so they could pull all kinds of stuff there and get away with it. But I think it's all got to come back to haunt them. But they're trying to pawn that grain off on Africans. I thought that's nice. You wouldn't feed it to a dog here, but Africans, they'll eat it. Hell of an attitude.